Welcome back. And now we have a slightly different format. We'll be having a masterclass from our moderator, HP Kleebinder from the University on St. Gallen, and we will be doing a deep dive into the automotive industry in China. HP, please can you come to the stage?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, good morning, grüezi. Hello from my side. I'm very privileged and happy that we have now the chance to do here a special format. We call it a masterclass. Myself, I'm at University St. Gallen, and I'm the managing director of an executive program and a network which is called Smart Mobility Management. So the focus on economics, not technical issues, driven by smart cities and smart data. So you heard this week a lot about smart cities and also data. We're going to try to combine this with smart mobility and with the focus China. So we call it Deep Dive China. And for this, I'm just a moderator host, and I have the privilege to ask the first questions. I brought a very special person to ask to our network with me, Professor Zheng. Please join me on stage.
Thank you.
Zheng is a lecturer from Tongji. You will see Tongji University in Shanghai, which is one of the oldest universities, also focused on mobility and cars. And he's also a lecturer at our University St. Gallen. In our program, he has a China Day, where we get an input every year, since 6 years, what's happening in China. And this development, got very dynamic in the last 2-3 years. And I really think that with this China deep dive, we hit the right hot issue, because if you look around, the new dragons, as we call them, are here to stay. They have strong statements. And the whole week there was this discussion. I was moderating a session with China, European Chamber of Commerce, and the topics were AV, we will pick up autonomous mobility, but also corporations. So how can we do this change with transformation, not alone, but with corporations? And these are more, let's say, challenging than ever due to the geopolitical situation you all know. So these two aspects I will address at the end of your input. And then please, if not, we should stop after 30 minutes and have breakfast, but we would love to discuss with you. So if you have questions right away, which can't wait, address them. We have our own section, at least 20 minutes at least, in the end, to get in interaction with you.
You can also have question in between.
Yes, in between also.
After each session.
Yeah, perfect. So looking forward to your impulse.
Thank you, Hans-Peter. So, good morning, everyone. A great pleasure for me to share some of my understanding and insight about China's mobility development. First of all, let me explain to you how I prepare this session. First of all, I think you realize at IAA, China is everywhere. So for a profound understanding of how Chinese companies have come so far, so we need to look at the big picture. So I would like to start with a little bit historical development, and then jump into today's status quo of Chinese automotive industries, and also their impact on the world and the global market. And the next question is, as you can also see, China or Chinese company, they have not only brought a lot of new models, and they've been focusing on EVs, but they also start to disrupt the rule of the game of the industry, the industrial value creation model, and also the operating model. So I will explain later what does that mean. It's not only a new type, a new breed of product, new energy vehicle, NEV, how the Chinese would call it. They also try to disrupt the way of making cars, and the way of making money. The last but not least, the ambition of Chinese companies is huge, you can see. I'm also going to look at the big picture and share with you my perspective on this trajectory of the development, especially as many of you are from Europe or non-Chinese, what will be the impact on the world? You will see that the world is getting a little bit more divided geopolitically, as Hans-Peter just mentioned. And also, this is going to happen in the automotive world. What does that mean? So let's first put the entire development into the historical context. And this macroeconomic model, I love to explain to my students at the beginning when they look at the industry, because industries come and go and develop in cycles. So this model, conductive cycle, sometimes it's also called the conductive waves, explain or at least hypothesize the development of industry, that industry and technology, they come in waves every 40 to 50 years. There will be emergence of a new set of industry. These industries will be the major wealth drivers for companies, for individuals, for nations. You can pin a lot of big names: Werner von Siemens, Gottlieb Daimler, Robert Bosch, Rockefeller, Elon Musk. So they all been pushing, driving, shaping these waves, and the nations behind, they took advantage of these industries, emergence of these industries, entrepreneurs, and the technology, and become wealthier. The good example is Germany, right? All the foundation, Robert Bosch, Gottlieb Daimler, etc., they laid over 100 years ago. Yeah, we're still taking advantage of it. So the wealth is built on that. But when we look at China, China missed all these waves. The Chinese history would tell you the last 100 years, 150 years, you can forget about most of the time because China was very busy dealing with itself. And China stepped onto the world stage economically only 40 years ago. In the automotive industry, it's the same. So 100 years, the world was developing cars and trucks and technologies, and there was no meaningful automotive industry in China. And now we are entering a new wave as we speak, the sixth wave. And the best guess is that technologies such as AI, smart mobility, smart infrastructure will be the main driver of economies and will turn company into an extremely successful, most valued company in the world. For example, Tesla is a good example. And the Chinese government and the Chinese industry, they realized that, so we need to catch the next wave ahead of the others. We need to start early. But it was a humble start. It was a humble start. You can say, timing-wise, very interesting, exactly 100 years after Mercedes-Benz registered its patent in Mannheim. It was 1886 in January. Almost 100 years later, China has started to assemble the very first car, the Volkswagen Santana, which was not a success model in the home market. So that was the humble start of the Chinese automotive industry. But fast forward to today. So now Chinese market makes up more than 30% of the world market. Then you can count the US market, the European market, it's also 1/3. Then is the rest of the world market, let's say another 1/3. So this distribution is not going to change that quickly. But the market share, these companies and these nations will command, this is going to change. So last year, 24, the global sales were around 85 million. In China alone, was 23 million passenger cars were sold. So 31% of the global sales. But on the other hand, if you pay attention to this chart, it sounds a little bit shocking, especially for managers, because you will see that China has a huge overcapacity problem. So Chinese car manufacturing capacity, according to different sources, has reached around 55 million. So again, the world car market is only 85 million. Basically, if you produce, you can produce more than half of the cars what the world needs, can be produced in China. And this is a challenge not only the Chinese car industry has to deal with. This challenge is already at the doorstep in Europe and also in other markets, how to deal with this. But as I said, Chinese company, they had a head start in the new domain, which is EV or NEV. That's why in China, you have a much, much higher penetration of EVs. 40%, 24, and in the first half of this year, it reached 44%, compared with 20% EV penetration in EU and 9% in the US. So in terms of new technology adaptation, you realize that Chinese, they are very eager to catch up, even overshoot. So we want to have the latest technology. We want to embrace the future is the key message. Definitely the Chinese government is very much supporting this endeavor. When we look at the current status of the Chinese car industry, we see that the sales number reached one record after another, but the entire industry has to pay a huge price. Right. So on the other hand, the consumer has paid less and less price-wise. So as we speak, currently is a very intense, let's say, price war going on in China. We see that all brands, they try to defend or gain market share through lower their price again and again and again. That price war started short after COVID in 2023 between Tesla and BYD. Then eventually it caught the fire almost for everyone. So everyone now is discounting 10, 15, 20, even more percentage. So it definitely makes the consumer happy. So if I look around, many of my Chinese friends and family, they just bought cars during the last 12 months because have never been so cheap. But on the other hand, the boomerang is coming back in the coming months and years. We'll also take a look on that. There's a big challenge in this context because price war is something usually Chinese company tend to use as a main strategy to gain market share. But this is definitely not in the genes of, for example, German company. They will never ever go into price war. But they made an exception for China because they have to they're forced to do this. They're forced to join this quite downward spiral game. Look around in the world. Nowhere else you can buy the cheapest Mercedes C-Class, the 3 BMW series, etc., than China these days. But still, they're losing market share. It's a big dip in terms of international OEM market share since COVID. Before COVID, the world was okay because international OEM occupied 66% of the market share in China. But after COVID, the current market share fell to 38%. And this is the biggest market for most of the German OEMs or international OEMs, and also the most profitable market. No wonder share prices of these companies start to stumble. And they have to engage into more challenges in the future. Because look at the demographic of the Chinese population. It's not working in favor of consumption because the population is going to decrease rapidly. For example, 2025, You have walking population of 900 million, 0.9 billion, and 2040, 15 years from now, 100 million walking populations gone, meaning 100 million buyers, potential buyers of cars, they would disappear. And also, the younger generation, yeah, they also start to embrace more and more shared mobility compared with their parent generation. Possession of a car is no more the ultimate goal, also for a lot of young Chinese. So that's why we have observed that international OEMs start to respond. A little bit late, but not yet too late. We will see. Currently, the key word is, for example, in China for China. But the competition is also at the doorstep. For example, BYD announced in Europe with Europe as their strategy just these days. And the international OEM, they not only have to more localize in China for China, they also have to do things faster. They need to work harder. They need to work long hours. And they even need to give up their China strategy. Some of these companies, such as Renault and Kia, etc., they start to realize they will not stand a chance in the Chinese market because the competition is too brutal. So they decided, in strategic management, you call it, they shift from market-driven strategy towards a resource-based strategy. So market-driven is, I go to that market because the market is attractive. That was the decision of all these companies 10, 15 years ago. But all of a sudden, they realize we have no chance in this market. But that market, that industry, offer a lot of opportunity, resource advantages, such as sophisticated supply network and talents, manufacturing capacity, underutilized. So we use this as a manufacturing hub to export to other parts of the world. Some of company already pivoted their strategy. And also another area which the race has just started is ADAS, or autonomous driving, which we'll come back later on. And this chart is somehow repeating what I just said. As you just look at the tendency of the top 12 car brands' price discount, it all going downward. Tesla is the only one so far that tried to keep it up, but they still have to reduce the price in recent days. So the cheapest entry level BYD Seagull in China dropped to less than $8,000 in China. So comparable, let's say, with the Up or Polo model. And the government has stepped in recently because the government definitely see this is not going to the right direction. So the government would like to stop, but these companies, they continue. They cannot control the salesperson because he wants to reach his sales goals. He would do anything or she would do anything. So now the incentives become more hidden in terms of zero interest financing, rebates, or insurance, free insurance. So this will be a new wave of price competition. EV is still growing as a share in the market, but at the same time, we can believe that although there's a growth in terms of sales number, but profit margin is decreasing. So the margin has become extremely thin. And now you also understand why there are over 100 Chinese companies at IAA today, because here is the land where the margin is still high. So if they sell one car in Europe, they have to sell 5 cars in China. So that's why they have to be here. That explains also the eagerness of Chinese companies go out of the China. Also, many of these companies believe if they can survive China, they can survive everywhere, right? Because it's a cutthroat, it's a high-pressure market currently. That's why one of the recent surveys shows 70% of OEM executives, they fear financial fallout from China car makers' global expansion. Yeah. So we said we might to have some question in between. If you have question, now it's the time. Otherwise, we can also, yeah, please.
and more, as 100 Chinese OEMs here and more in China. What we see also in IAA, I'm shifting a little bit to tier 1 automotive suppliers. So what I think is remarkable that there are also many tier 1, tier 2 automotive supplier, technical suppliers.
Yeah.
Is it the same that there are so many in China, that there is an overload,
Yes.
that there will be, on the OEM side, we always talk about there must be some consolidation.
Yeah.
Does that also apply for the tier 1, tier 2 automotive suppliers?
The short answer is yes. Because you remember the picture I showed you at the beginning, the Zantana picture. At that time, the government started a strategy so-called local content. They want to increase the local content, including both domestic supplier and JVs. So the local content increased over the last 40 years from all kind of parts, from schools to the lights to now softwares. The local content reached, I would not say 100%, but an extremely high 90%. So you also have the overcapacity in the supplier world. It's not only the OEM, they have the overcapacity. Thank you. Good. Then let's move on. Before we look into the operation model and value creation model of the car industry, I would like to first explain a relatively classical theory in the domain of innovation management. I believe some of you, or many of you, have heard about the theory. It is called innovator's dilemma. So I personally find this theory is a perfect match with what's just happened, using, let's say, Mercedes and BYD as a, let's say, example to explain this theory. So what does this theory say? Because this theory is also based on, let's say, empirical data of other industries, other technological domain. So the theories say the incumbent, so the top dog in the market, they definitely have a very strong R&D department. So I wrote my master thesis in the R&D department of Daimler and Esslingen. So it's a, let's say, most advanced, one of the most advanced R&D department in the automotive industry. They look very further into the future and ask themselves the question, what will come up 10, 20 years down the road, technological-wise? So let's say they identify, okay, 10, 20 years ago already, battery could be a very interesting powertrain source, a new technology for powertrain. But they look around which supplier can do that. Not too many at the time. Can we do this? Yes, maybe under laboratory conditions. Okay, let's keep an eye on this. Maybe from time to time, start a project, continue, follow that topic, and see where does this go. And then 5 years later, they realize the technology has progressed, but they ask themselves the question, can I install the technology in the S-Class to sell to our German S-Class customers? Because this is the number question. All the new technology will be installed in the top tier of their product. So the answer of the question you already know. No, for a long time, because the technology is not mature yet. But then let's take a look at BYD. The BYD will say, there's no chance for us to create a product which probably some mainstream markets will adapt. But let's do some experiments. Let's building a battery which will only last 60 kilometers. So 10, 15 years ago, you will find a lot of Chinese ride-hailing drivers, Uber drivers, so to speak, driving this kind of car because it is considered as a new energy vehicle, although most of the time they never use the battery, or the battery only lasts 20 kilometers. But this is the very first step to experiment, the very first step to enter new technological domain. But cut a long story short, why Mercedes is still wondering, okay, is that mature enough for the S-Class? 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, BYD already started to mass produce, and through rapid prototyping, introducing new models, the technology become more mature and mature. And then all of a sudden you see the race become uneven. Why they are so much ahead? Then you have the battery company, CATL, and all the others were following. So that is the reason why I think this theory explains very much what just happened, because the leaders of the market, the used to be innovation leaders of the market, their benchmarking customers are premium customers. And premium customer will never give you the chance to do experiment with new technologies. That's why they wait and wait and wait. Customer for BYD, they started with low end, affordable technology, okay technology, but good price. So they have a foot in the door, but not only the foot, 2 feet, and then all of a sudden the door is open. And then we realize that Mercedes say, okay, now we need to catch up. Now we need to really work hard. But the previous new entrants, they are not satisfied with only entry-level product. You already seen they've been here. They've been already in the ultra luxury segment with their own sub-brand Yangwang, and also Denza. It's a previous JV between Mercedes and BYD. So that is the innovator's dilemma put into action. And there is also lessons learned how company in mobility domain need to deal with a new breed of technologies. Don't be too shy. Don't be too much concerned about your current core customer group. This is also what I will tell many OEMs. Because if you look at German OEMs, your main benchmark of customer needs are the European market and the German car drivers. But don't forget, the German car market with 88 million of population, or 86 million of population, is just a fraction of one of the chart I showed you earlier. 1/3 in China, 1/3 US, Europe together, and 1/3 rest of the world. If you just take the German car driver as the benchmark, do a survey in downtown Munich, you will get totally different picture than the other 30% of the world will give you. And you will develop a total different type of product which you cannot sell to that 30% of the world. And eventually, let's say, even the German company, they can keep their home turf, protect their home turf, they are going to lose that 30%. And they are already losing the Chinese 30%. And putting this together, 60% of the world against 30% of the world market. Then you can weigh the scale, the power of these companies 10, 15 years down the road. So, as I said, this is just the beginning, innovator's dilemma. Chinese company not only embracing innovations, they also try to challenge. I think they are quite, we say, they just do not follow the rule. They just do not follow the industry rules. They try to challenge the way of producing cars, the operating model. They try to challenge the way of making money through cars, the value creation model. So what do I mean by operating model? Cost is a big factor. Speed is a big factor. Software and AI technology embeddedness is a big factor, and also smart manufacturing. So putting all this together, the value creation, the operating model and value creation model, this will look totally different as we speak. Here are some examples and data out of the press. For example, UBS compared BYD C against Volkswagen ID3 and found out 30% cheaper in terms of cost. And also speed-wise, Chinese companies, many of these 130 companies, they are startup-like company. They have startup-like culture. Not too many car guys working in the industry. And who make the decision were previously software guys. So they want to do things all at the same time and very fast, using simulation, virtual prototyping for faster iteration. And they try to already start to work on software platforms. they try to make now, update later, not having the perfect product released to the market, just like our iPhones. You have the perfect hardware, but software is not yet perfect. You can update within 24 hours, within a week. The new type of consumer, they will accept it because they are used to have offered this kind of updates. And it's not easy to work with Chinese OEM. If I interview suppliers, it's very tough. They will call you Saturday evening, 10 o'clock, and you need to give an answer next morning. This is something you cannot do with a German supplier. Then you have the explanation why within the short period of time, Chinese OEM can bring up so many new models, right? So again, working on innovation is not sufficient to survive. A key message to international OEM, also probably working overtime on top. Here is one of the interesting survey I've been following from JD Power. They have released the so-called China Tech Experience Index for 4 or 5 years. They compare the tech experience of car drivers or users across many brands and across different type of powertrain. And in total, they covered 140 ICE models in China and 115 EV and EV models. And the only domain where you can see that international OEM rank top is in premium ICE brands in terms of tech experience. And in other EV related domains, the tech experience has been dominated by COEMs. I think BMW has released, and Mercedes has released a new model. I think in next year's ranking, we will see whether they'll be able to satisfy Chinese consumers' appetite for technology with their GLC model as well as with i3 model. So, but on the other hand, a long way to go for Chinese companies, and also some recent tests show some sobering results. There's a Chinese organization, Dongchedi. It's like Germans' Auto, Motor und Sport magazine platform. They've been doing tests. They've done the so-called ADAS test with 15 high-risk real-world scenario, 6 highway scenario, 9 urban scenario. If you look at the outcome of these tests, yeah, Chinese company, they haven't been managing very well these scenarios. The best in class still Tesla in managing these ADAS scenario. But still, I totally believe that it's just a question of time. They are going to catch up in this area. And also another new value creation domain for most of the OEMs will be the robotaxi domain. It's a lot of information, but I pulled together what's happening recently in different parts of the world. Let me just jump to the summary part. What we can say about China is China, just like always China does, China is very good in scale up. It's a scale leader in terms of ridership and numbers and millions. So huge volume, a lot of data is being gathered. The US, they are technologically definitely maybe a little bit more advanced, commercialization also leading, but the volume-wise is still not yet reaching to China. And what we can learn from Europe is regulations. As we previously, in one of the previous presentation is the battery pass regulation. European battery pass regulation is the best in the world, the most comprehensive in the world. So you can definitely learn a lot in terms of regulations. Also Japan and also other nations, they've been catching up, they've been doing, but my personal belief is the main competition will still between China and the US in terms of technology, in terms of volume. Again, here Europe needs to hurry up, need to catch up in many sense. Any questions so far? Any comment? Yes.
Thank you, Professor. I have questions that the Chinese car makers, they do the MVP to the markets, which is less perfect products. It may seem faster, but what's the bad side of it? Maybe there's will cause two different kind of cars in the world, like the MVP one, and with less attention to the quality, or maybe some German companies they pay a lot of
Yeah.
attention to the.
I totally agree, because if you now go to markets such as Indonesia or Sri Lanka or some Southeast Asian markets, they do not expect a perfect car with 5 million kilometer of test run of every parts. They expect they can afford their first car. They expect you can link with your smartphone. So they have a different types of value, let's say, curve needs in comparison with a typical developed market driver, users, customer, which they have a heritage of owning cars, driving cars, grandparents, parents should be driving Audi, and they want to drive Audi. You need to match their expectation. So the world will be divided. So a lot of emerging markets, such as India, they just start to ignite the engine for their car market in the next 10 years. Currently, I believe Chinese companies' products are more close to their needs than the Mercedes BMW products. So that's why it's a strategic question, as I said earlier. Do Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, etc., do they need to pay more attention to that part of the world? More wholehearted? Because in the past, you just sell what you produce. A good example is the smartphone industry, because I believe many of you never heard about a company which is called Techno. But that company is #1 in Africa, selling 200 million smartphones. That company is from China, selling smartphones in Africa. Why? Because Samsung, Apple, they never pay attention to Africa. 10 years ago, they just let the company export phones to that market. And then come the Chinese company and say, hey, I have a better choice for you. This is cheaper. You can put 3 SIM card into it, or 4 SIM card, because the reception network is not well. And we can also adapt a lot of local habits into that. All of a sudden, you're selling 200 million. Yeah? #4 in the world in terms of market share. And this can also happen in the car industry. Okay, now let's jump into the last chapter. Actually, this is a good question. The last section, what I would like to talk about is Chinese OEM's global ambition. So in 2023, 2024, China overtook Japan in terms of car sales number. 6.4 is not the total whole vehicle. This is the Chinese custom data. It also includes chassis. But still, if you take out the chassis, China is still selling to the world more cars than Japan, Germany, and the US. But we're only counting the unit. We are not counting the value yet. If you compare counting the value, maybe German companies sell more, because you're selling 1 Porsche, you need to sell 50 BYDs, for example, in terms of value. But this is the beginning. As I said earlier, China has 55 million capacity of producing. So you are in the red ocean. Now you're looking for blue ocean. Blue ocean, yeah, geographically is no more China. Geographically will be Middle East, Southeast Asia, South America, East Europe, etc., etc. And who took the first hit? Japanese companies. Because value-wise, positioning-wise, affordability-wise, technological-wise, Chinese cars are most close to the Japanese cars in all these emerging markets. That's why if you just compare the black curve, which is the China market share in these regional markets, and the red one, Japanese OEMs market share in China, we don't have to talk about it, Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia. So that is what I said. In these emerging markets, it starts to show that the value proposition, the product, the Chinese OEM making is more suitable for the local population. And in Europe also, the number is growing. For the sake of time, just want to point out that, in the first half of 2025, Chinese OEMs registration reached 5% share. Within the next 5 to 10 years, it could reach 10% and even higher percentage in the home turf of Volkswagen, Mercedes, and BMW. Also, the geopolitics has changed Chinese OEM strategy, because previously what the strategy was, we produce in China, we export to the world. But now the strategy has pivoted. The strategy is, we need to produce locally. We need to also embrace the local for local strategy. So COEM also start to expand internationally their manufacturing footprint. Here are just some of these examples. And I need to highlight that BYD said at IAA this year that 3 years from now, all the EVs BYD selling in Europe will be produced coming from Europe. But Chinese OEM, they still have to face some challenges. Let me finish my last chart, and we can hopefully have an engaging discussion. Number one challenge is the brand perception. So made in China, the association is still not yet quality and sustainability and long-lasting product life cycle. So Chinese companies need to work on the brand perception. It's a little bit easier in emerging markets, but for traditional car markets, Germany, Central European market, this is a big obstacle, major constraint. And the second is the talent constraints, because for the car industry, China, they've been focusing on China 40 years. You have a lot of talents in China, but these talents probably haven't gained a lot of international experiences. So they also need a lot more and more talent to feed, to drive their globalization ambition in sales, in manufacturing. But definitely they also have to hire more and more local talents. Service and maintenance network. This is a different topic depending on which market we're talking about. For a German market, example, where users are used to have a high density of sales and maintenance network, you have to catch up. But in other markets, probably you can run different model like Tesla. And price competitiveness. So we know that price advantage, 30% BYD compared to Volkswagen, but this price competitiveness is going to diminish once they've been localizing, plus the tariff, for example. So there are a lot of factors which will outbalance and counterbalance the price advantage of Chinese cars. And technological localization. This is a major topic because we know Chinese OEM, they excel in AI, smart cockpit, AI integration into cars, but user behavior, user preference in terms of app usage or messaging services, etc., they are different in different parts of the world. But they have to really localize and adapt. But last but not least, related to the technological issue is the data and privacy concern, right? We see that more and more countries, they start to put a very high bar in terms of data and privacy issue when it comes to consumer data and customer data. And car has now become a moving collector of data. So here, Chinese companies need to be extremely careful in order to adhere to local regulations. So winning globally, it demands localization, compliance, and also brand credibility for Chinese OEMs. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Zheng, very much. I saw a lot of mobile phones coming up. You will find the charts and more on our website, Smart Mobility Management, or on LinkedIn. So we're happy to interact with you afterwards. So I have the privilege to make it first two question sections, I would call them. And I showed these slides also at the China-European Commerce meeting. And my thesis is that the AV race we have today, we witness, I think we're even in the middle of the race. We had Oliver Blume with Moya, our Minister of Transport, and the CEO of the public transport in Berlin. It just shows how this changes at the Volkswagen booth. So we're in the middle of this AV race, and I'm not that old, but nearly, no, I was born around that time. We had the AV, the race to the moon between Russia and United States. One back, please. And I really compare it to this. This technology can really shake the whole world and define new boundaries. And on the next chart is my question to you. So we have this global AV race. I did put flags on the cars, but we discussed at this panel with German Focus that we need 2 more years to homologate the first AV cars. On the other side, you mentioned the landscape in China, and I have some figures that we have around 1 million driverless, with no driver, per month in China, and 2 million with Waymo. So where do you see the position now, and where is maybe the sector which drives this? It might not just be the private car, but we have a sector of public transport, but also freight goods. Yeah. So give us an idea about the state of the global AV race.
Yeah, in my presentation, I show a chart that in terms of autonomous driving, each country's model or their strategic setup is different. Yep. So China always use first its volume because it has the volume. It's the easiest way to collect data in China and compared to Europe and the US. And as we know, autonomous driving, all these algorithms, they need a lot of data. Definitely. They need a lot of data. So in that sense, China definitely has an advantage. But on the other hand, you just cannot take the car which learned in China and put on the European street. They have to kind of calibrate and also collect local data. And that's why in the short term, you will see these regional heroes that they dominate the local landscape. But in the midterm, the appetite of these regional heroes is not sufficient. We already see Chinese companies are already entering Europe through partnership. Momenta with Uber, for example, and also Baidu has established their presence here. So the next stage of the competition in autonomous vehicle, for one, is that they try to enter the other regions to prepare for the future. Because prepare means you have to localize your data system and get used to the local traffic situation. This is for one. Another topic which you mentioned is other use cases, micromobility, transportation. If you look at the current stage, you have, for example, Tesla is also for their Cybertruck, very advanced, but you will find in China many of these autonomous driving truck technology companies in China focusing only on transportation. They're also eyeing the global expansion, looking for partnership. So in Europe, I believe still in this area is lagging a little bit behind. And we will see that we will see that in transportation, Chinese company, they also set up, because the situation in China, due to the demographic development, you have less and less truck drivers. And also this is not only in China, everywhere in the world. That's why this is a huge, huge growth area.
Thank you. The second topic, next slide, please. I also showed this to your colleagues. So the world is changing, geopolitics. Yeah, on the one side this, and on the other side, there's a big chance we discussed for Europe and China. Last slide, please. That this happens. And we have a lot of phenomena. We have the Seidenstraße, you know, the train. And my research showed that up to now, we sold a lot of German premium cars during the last 20 years to China. We made immense profits. As I know, there's no single Chinese car that has been entered the US market. So maybe some, you know. So your short judgment, what will happen to geopoliticization, and where do you see this picture? Where do we stand here?
Yeah, I think for the Chinese OEM, the US market currently is a no-go for many reasons, for the reason we know. And this might not change that quickly in the near future. So that's why the focus of a Chinese company is rest of the world, emerging market for sure, but also the very prestige European market. So European market has a strategic meaning. It's not only the profitability is higher, but also the requirements of the customer is also different and also maybe higher in a different sense. So the Chinese company will engage with the European market more intensively in the near future. It's no more a secret. But on the other hand, they already sense that just exporting to Europe, this is not a sustainable model because of the tariff. We can see all the tariff can just skimming the profitability of the cost structure of the Chinese company. So eventually they have to produce more and more locally. So you have already companies who are more capable of doing this, who are strong and big enough of doing this, such as BYD, such as Geely, etc. They've been already preparing. It's happening.
Yeah, it's happening in reality. Isabella, we have, I think, more than 80 Chinese companies here. So it was a raise by, I think, 100% since last time. And lots of these new dragons are based in Munich, which I think is good. It makes here Munich as a center of gravity and smart mobility. Last slide I stole from your lecture. I'm a big fan. And some of you know your lecture. So to get away from this divide between our world sections, that could be a common ground we should, or we can jointly look on. If you want to deep dive more into this topic, just come to our executive program. We have a full day with Zheng. We have Hui Zhang with us, with Neo. So if you need more information, I got some information here. And we have some alumni. Please raise your hand if you have any more questions. And I would now open the floor. I got 5 minutes more. I discussed with your team, Liane. So please open for your questions. And we sit down. You stand long enough. Please. Wait, we got the micro. Oh. Just your name and what you do, please.
So I was wondering, what's the influence of purchasing power of the consumer when we look at, price, market, because obviously the purchasing power in Europe of the consumer is probably in the decline. So how does this play a role?
This is playing to the hand of Chinese companies because one of the weaknesses European OEMs had in the past is they do not have affordable EV models. And only recently they start to introduce more affordable EV models. As I said, the innovator's dilemma, latest technology, we focus on the S-Class. So they've been ignoring the affordable segment. Now time is running, as you just said. European economy is not growing. In Europe you have a challenge. France is facing economic challenges. German GDP is not growing. So the the purchasing power of consumer is going to stall or even decline. Then more and more consumer will look around for a more affordable product. And the Chinese company now they say, okay, we have prepared something that's for you.
Okay. Any more? Please. Oh.
Hi, my name is Moritz Wefelscheid, General Counsel with NEO since 9 years. And good question to you, because you were talking about local expectations of a product and things like that. And I want to put this in the context of development of ADAS, autonomous driving. Might it not be the wrong direction? Because a lot of people might not be able to afford ADAS due to the technology. They might not need it because they say I do short distance travel. That everybody is developing into this direction, and there might be a split market where you simply do not need a fully equipped car. What's your opinion on that?
I think in solving that problem, you have a very nice as a service model in these days. You don't have to buy ADAS, you just have to hire ADAS for that period of time as you need it. So that is a very good way to let customer taste the advantage of ADAS. For example, I can give you 1 week or 1 month free subscription of ADAS. And you will decide after 1 month whether you want to pay that or not. This could be a good way to open up the market a little bit. So the technology is ready to do this. The only thing is whether in building your cars, you can already afford to build in all the hardware in advance. And this is what the Chinese company have been doing. So just like you buying everything one size bigger than you need, installing all the most advanced hardware, and eventually you offer your potential customer and the future customer that possibility through over-the-air updates.
So you're not fearing that there is a product pushed in for 5,000 because you can develop a car with no technology, and then 50% of the consumers are using that because they simply need to travel?
Yeah. They can probably subsidize the other not using it, but still have the hardware in the car.
Any more questions? I have one. We had this topic, it's always one of the most controversial topics, from ownership, car ownership, to access. So you mentioned the service model. You mentioned that ownership changes. So what's the relationship to owning a car? And if you don't own it, what are the models of using it in China? Also, since you are very strong into psychology of customers, so what's changing here concerning ownership of car or access?
Yeah, I think this is a challenge for OEMs in general. If we look at the Gen Z customer, and then again, the next one, Gen Alpha customers, they are now used to this. I just hire it, I just buy it when I want to use it. So I don't have to process it. So this kind of shift in mindset, in consumption perception, this will lead to a big change in value creation model, as I said, for OEMs, because they cannot calculate in the traditional way
How to earn money.
how to achieve their profitability, right? How to sell their cars. They need to calculate it in the life cycle perspective. So what are possibilities of generating revenues across the entire life cycle of my product for different segments of customers? So that will be the new way of thinking.
Okay. Last questions from your side? No, Senite as the last question.
that was
sorry. Please.
I'm from Australia, which is just over the border. Joking. We are experiencing an invasion of Chinese in Australia. We have a massive problem where there is no support for the product in the event of an accident or something going wrong. We cannot get parts, and we are in the smash repair business. We have cars banked up for months, and some over a year, waiting on parts. So how do you see China managing and supporting the invasion of their products into the world?
I think this is a big challenge for many of these Chinese companies because they are not yet experienced enough for international expansion. So the simplistic thinking at the beginning is, I just want to get rid of my product. I want to sell it to the world. Then you have buyers, but then over the life cycle of the car, a lot of problems and opportunity will emerge. But most of this Chinese OEM, they are not experienced enough to foresee that, to get ready for that, to prepare themselves for that, and they are learning. I hope that learning curve is quite steep, but I believe they are also racing against the time, because if you're not doing this for a certain period of time, again, one of the challenges, brand perception. Your expensively paid marketing budget eventually will lose its value in a very short period once you cannot catch up with all the other services.
Okay. So, last questions is a little bit announcing a new project of the two of us. So we will offer a smart mobility expedition. We go 4 days to Shanghai and Shenzhen, and then we will go to the Peking Auto Show, which is also partnering with the Messe München. And it's in April, end of April, so only more than half a year. And we all know China's speed, a lot happens in half a year. So what can we expect if we will visit Peking Auto Show? What will be the 3 new most interesting things? Is it going to be in the air? Is it going to be maybe entertainment in the car? Or what would you think as 3 new topics half a year when we visit Peking Auto Show?
For one, definitely until then you will see another lineup of products and technology, no question about that. And the second thing is what you can embrace is how Chinese consumers are looking at the product, looking at the EV, the car as a digital product, as a gadget product, and how open-minded or playful these consumers are, because you will always find this kind of interesting, you say you will never sell to the European customers. And the third thing is also because here is the home turf for European OEMs and international OEM. In Beijing and China, that is a home turf of Chinese OEMs. You will see how they present themselves at home in comparison to at IAA. And this is also tells a lot about the self-reflection.
Yeah. Looking forward to our trip. Thank you very much, and big applause to Professor Zheng.
Thank you.
Hand over to Lian.
Yeah. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We have a break now, but I encourage you to please come back for our last session, not only of the day, but also our last session of the week, which will be starting at past. So I'll see you all there. Thank you.